All right, guys. So I wanted to give my breakdown, my analysis, and my thoughts on the latest Gordon Ryan versus Nicky Rod match. First off, I think Gordon should be praised for trying to elevate the sport, trying to bring it into its mainstream, and every single interview that he does, he talks about how great the event was, how great it was ran, and how this is a good thing for jiu-jitsu and a good thing through and through. When in the reality, it's very easy to be frustrated in these tournaments and in these events, especially because he got injured. He got his ankle broken, he said, and that's not ever a fun thing to do, especially when you're in the middle of a match and you have to complete the rest of the match. And then while you're injured, the referee decides to try to make a show of things and completely messes up the end of the match, where the guy's got you in a fully locked strangle and you're not saying, time, that the time is up. It has to be Gordon that is not only defending the onslaught of attacks from Nicky Rod, but he has to manage the clock and manage the referee and try to tell Nicky Rod that, okay, time is up, it's over. And then he's forced to be able to tap because Nicky Rod's squeezing on his head so hard that his teeth are breaking through his face. I mean, if you guys have ever been put in a mandible strangle or a strangle where the choke is, or the arm is around your face, it's terrible. And then you have Nicky Rod doing that to you and squeezing for his life to try to submit you. Oh my goodness, it's a terrible, terrible feeling. And every single interview, he only praises and tries to lift jiu-jitsu up in its entirety, and you got to give respect for Gordon for doing that. Now, as far as the match itself, Gordon had submitted Nicky Rod in a heel hook before, a couple weeks ago in the ADCC finals, and he had started an initial half guard or like reverse De La Hiva kind of exchange to start to get into the legs and everything like that. And that's all fine and good, and it was a great submission. It was an amazing performance by Gordon. So in this match, though, you saw Nicky Rod have to play a cagey, more distance kind of type game. I have a lot of friends that are saying, Nicky Rod won that fight or something like that, and that he's just this amazing athlete. And while, yes, he is an amazing athlete plus amazing jiu-jitsu skills and technique, they combine well. They work better than jiu-jitsu skills and not an athlete. So there's that, but at the same time, Nicky Rod has been grappling for his entire life. There was an interview with J-Rod where he was talking about going to wrestling competitions, when they were 6-7 years old, and that they were becoming comfortable competing when they were that young. So this notion that, somehow athleticism won over jiu-jitsu is not the case. Of course, if you are an athlete that also has great technique, like the better athlete you are and the better your jiu-jitsu knowledge is, the better it's going to be regardless. But it's hard to explain to an uneducated viewer the difference and the actual gap in how powerful the technique is on its own versus someone who doesn't have that knowledge or skill of the technique at all. Furthermore, Nicky Rod has trained with Gordon. He has trained with Danaher. And when you train with a guy, you tend to know his game, his style, and you can sort of adapt to not being able to be submitted as easily when you know his core moves and techniques. So, Nicky Rod proposes a difficult strategy where he's very, very difficult to take down. He has the wrestling domain, and he has really good body lock and half guard passing. So it makes it a difficult combination where it's going to be really tough. He'd be happy to wrestle with you if you want to wrestle. So it's going to be really tough to get on top in the standing position. And if Nicky Rod gets on top, then his guard passing is really good and very difficult to deal with as well. So that's the main problem that Nicky Rod poses, and it's a very difficult one to solve. And then when you combine that with kind of playing a negative stalling type game, it makes him very hard to submit combined with all of his athleticism as well. Also, the rules dictate several things in this grappling match, where there wasn't any penalties for stalling, and it was sort of just submission only until there was EBI overtime rounds. And in the ADCC format, Nicky Rod was forced to engage, and he would get stalling calls if he didn't engage that would count against him and have him lose the match. So that's another important element that was at play. If I were, though, to critique Gordon, I would say that, one, he was just not... you got to respect that your opponent has the capability to defeat you. I think there was a bit of an overconfidence thing where he just didn't have his foot positioning correct. I'm sure he knows how to have it correct in 50-50. But he just didn't respect Nicky Rod's ability to slap on that toe hold. It's a very specific toe hold in that very specific position, and there isn't really a great defense for it. It's just a matter of being smart with your feet and preventing it from ever happening in the first place. A lot of Danaher's guys will willingly give up leg lock exchanges or give up the appearance of a leg lock just so that they could get into a leg lock battle and win it themselves. But you also got to be careful when you're going against a guy like Nicky Rod and respect and keep smart foot positioning yourself as well. So that's important to do. But also, I would say, if you're not going to wrestle with Nicky Rod, which I could understand, there's 3 domains in grappling. There's the wrestling, then there's being on top, and then there's being on bottom. So Gordon limited himself to being in only the bottom domain. And the systematic nature of their style has them become really good at systematized attack from a particular position. But what I would think would be a better approach would be to use all of the guards in succession with each other, that each guard is a different level of distance control, and that you use them progressively as your opponent tries to close that distance. And I understand Gordon wanted to go with using the half guard, but the problem with the half guard is that it's a very reactive game, and you're sort of relying on your opponent to engage with you from the half guard. I have many private lesson students that want to learn half guard, and one of the most frustrating things when they are discovering about half guard is that the reactive nature of that game, it's hard to play that game if someone is not coming forward and actually trying to engage with you and pass. So you'd have to resort more to your open guard, butterfly guard, and things of that nature, which do give up things such as body lock passes, which are more Nicky Rod's specialty. But if you're not going to wrestle in the standing position, you're not going to be on top, then conceding to a half guard or a specific kind of guard play where your opponent can kind of negate you and stall you out, you're giving up too much. And I say, you know, play the risk that, you know, you can play an open guard with Nicky Rod. You're good enough to do it, and you're good enough to be able to defend his body lock guard passing initially. And you're just going to have to use a little bit of retention and use a different guard style. And if it so comes to be the fact that you end up using half guard later, then that's fine. But relying on half guard as a reactive guard allows Nicky Rod to kind of stall things out and play that cagey game as he did. Also, I would say that someone's belief in the techniques, everyone has a different exact idea of what techniques are the most effective and what techniques work, and there's a certain amount of belief they have in techniques. And I believe that Gordon believes that he cannot submit Nicky Rod on the upper body. And I say that is unfortunate. I mean, granted, I believe that Nicky Rod probably has really good upper body defense. But personally, I love the armbar. I'm a huge armbar fan, a huge armbar specialist. And, you know, part of, I think, the strategy, like Gordon was in close guard for some time in that match, that, you know, if you use the armbar, if you're able to at least attempt the upper body to switch to maybe like a pendulum sweep that could end you up on top, and to improve your finishing mechanics where you use closed wedges with your legs, that could be a method of finishing Nicky Rod. And that's an area of Gordon's game that I see can be improved, where you see Gordon has a lot more faith in his leg attacks than he does in his arm lock attacks. You see an example of this like Craig Jones. Craig Jones at one time was by far the best leg locker in all of grappling, I would say. And you heard in an interview before ADCC that he just doesn't believe in doing heel hooks anymore. And I think that's because, you know, he rolls with a lot of guys that are really good at defending heel hooks and turning them into back takes. But as Gordon proved, there's nothing wrong with the technique. It's all just about how you apply it. And I think that in Gordon's mind, the heel hook is so far above in effectiveness than the arm lock. And there are a couple insights I would love to try to give him on that topic. I think they could be going about it in a slightly different way, and it could be more effective. So as far as, you know, Gordon's performance, he is miles and miles ahead of Nicky Rod and the rest of the competition. But you know, the results were what they were. Gordon still won the match. But it leaves this like ambiguity where he tapped and he got injured from Nicky Rod's attacks, which didn't put on the best showing, and has people talking shit. All the while, Gordon just continues to praise everyone in the jiu-jitsu community, everyone that was a part of the match, or maybe not everyone in the jiu-jitsu community, but everyone that was part of that UFC 3 event. One last point I would say is the referee. The referee really could have done a better job. Somebody needs to explain to the referee, and I'm a huge fan of Victor Davila, who was the referee, and someone needs to explain to him that his one and only job is to referee these matches. And he's trying to amp up the crowd, and he's making these crazy reactions to the match that's going on, and he's trying to become part of the show. And I could understand where he's coming from with the EBI fights, that he was refereeing before, how he wanted to hype up and make the show as exciting as possible. But as jiu-jitsu becomes more mainstream and you're doing a UFC event as the referee, you need to just be the referee. And he messed up. He really messed up at that final part of the match where he should have called time when the time elapsed. So those are my criticisms. Those are my thoughts. All in all, I think it was another milestone for jiu-jitsu becoming more mainstream, but there are a lot of things about that event that could be improved as well. Anyway, thank you guys so much. I love you all, and have a great rest of your night.